production of the Vanagon DC Dometic RTX2000 air conditioning project was propelled recently when our family was camping and we got caught in a pretty nasty heat wave. We almost had to take our toddler to the emergency room because of heat exhaustion. The dog wasn't doing too well either. The whole family was miserable. Fortunately, a local restaurant came to our aid and kind of let us stay there at the peak hot times of the day. We also had several trips like in 100, 105 degree plus heat where we either had to book a hotel or hang out at a fast food place for hours where it was cool. We've canceled several trips because of the heat, and as all of us Vanagon owners know, we are friends of the night because that is the best way to travel to avoid a heat wave. Well, not really anymore. The Dometic RTX2000 has changed the Vanagon ethos. After installing it, I can say, I'm not worried about the kids or wife due to heat exhaustion. I don't have to worry about driving at night all the time. There's no canceled trips, no waiting 3 or 4 hours in an air-conditioned In-N-Out burger. In fact, the Vanagon is so comfortable now that instead of driving my usual 2,000 miles a year for camping or occasionally picking up something large from the hardware store, I found myself using it on the daily, like a functioning modern vehicle. But first off, I really want to give serious props and praises to the first person who installed the Dometic RTX2000 and posted their project online. This was a major evolutionary step for the Vanagon. It also inspired me to give the RTX2000, which is roughly double the BTUs, a try. But after my install, I'd recommend nothing but the RTX2000, which is really needed to keep up with cooling the rear area. Although the front area of the Vanagon is ice for the most part, you basically have 7,000 BTUs right to your head and shoulders. The larger RTX2000 unit is really efficient due to the larger cooling capacity. This size also enables the unit to cool down the overall Vanagon much quicker, which results in the system running in like eco mode 80% of the time, thus using less battery. There are several pros and cons to putting in the Dometic RTX2000, and here are some of my views on the pros and cons and sort of working through that, which hopefully will help you make your decision. There were numerous influences that had me go with the RTX2000 versus other options. One, the unit is sleek as can be and is a perfect fit for a Vanagon Westphalia roof rack. The luggage rack literally fits like a glove over the unit, so close that the luggage rack produces the noise of the unit considerably too. It was almost like they were meant to be together or something. It's really a good fit. Second, the system requires no major alternator changes. As you get about 20 amps from the stock Subaru motor, I have the 2.2 liter. I believe the Waterbox motor is pretty similar amp-wise. However, I am gonna upgrade some stereo equipment in the future. I put in a freezer in addition to the Van Cafe refrigerator, so I will probably just update the alternator a little bit to give a little bit more juice. You also don't have to haul around a generator, or literally some people drive around with a 5,000 BTU AC window unit, or like trying to put in a 120 volt RV air conditioner that requires massive inverters with new alternators, sometimes 2 alternators, if it's even feasible. There's no need for electricity while you're camping. You're completely off the grid. Also, there's dependability. Dometic has been making high quality products for a very long time. In fact, the original Westphalia fridge was a Dometic. The RTX2000 model has also been in production for cooling semi-trucks for quite a while. It's been tested and it's proven itself over and over. And there's like countless reviews online, primarily from like the van life community and people putting them in larger vans with their modifications. And they love it. I haven't seen one bad review about it. And after my install, I've really joined the love triangle as well. So
One of the best parts about the air conditioner is the pregame and the half game. And what I mean is I go in here, and before I, get the kids in here, or like, let's say if it's really hot, today was pretty hot, just go in here and turn it on, let it run for a few minutes while I'm packing up the back or, using the restroom, getting some Gatorades or water. And when I come out, it's running. And then also when I run into the post office or run into the store or need to run and pick the kids up from the daycare or preschool, this thing's running. It doesn't need the engine at all. It's really nice. And I think that that's one of the things in my book that sort of edges it out over other options. And obviously now it's running, and I'll go ahead and turn it off. And then of course you have the option to do some minimal controls on the actual unit, and then the remote gives you a lot more options thereafter.
So a few of the cons of the Dometic RTX2000 unit is that with the unit itself, the 300 amp hour lithium battery, a solar charger control unit, and a lot of the miscellaneous parts, it ends up weighing close to 150 pounds. I found that when I cleaned out my Vanagon during the install, I cleared out a bunch of dead weight, mostly had a bunch of equipment and tools that I needed for roadside repairs that are really not needed now with the Subaru conversion. Also, installing the Van Cafe truck fridge is considerably lighter than the factory fridge. So I was able to, squeeze a couple pounds here and there. I don't really feel it though when I drive the vehicle. It's pretty smooth. I don't really notice a difference either way, before the unit or after the unit, but it is heavy, so that is a truth. The unit is also power hungry, but with a 300 amp hour lithium battery, and if you have between 100 to 400 watts of solar power coming in, it'll get you pretty far. I've done one 3-day trip, and it was in a heat wave, and I basically used half the batteries with that, and it recovered pretty quickly with driving back and the solar panels. The unit does take 2 strong people to install. I was able to recruit a few neighbors. Of course, the project is expensive. However, watching my video installation has a lot of tips where you can cut costs, probably by a third or more. To be honest, my install was more of an experimental research and development project. Post-install, I 100% believe that the cost was worth it. It's like having a new van, it really feels like that. The biggest con is that there's really no resources or videos on how to install one of these in a Vanagon. There are also no vendors making kits or adapters to support a Vanagon installation either. When you step into the Sprinter, Mercedes, transit vans, etc., there are tons of resources and specifically manufactured parts to install the RTX2000. There's more videos than you could possibly count. Realizing that there was a gap in the Vanagon knowledge base with this unit, I did decide to take the plunge and record the entire install to help others trying to solve the air conditioning issue with our beloved vans. So now let's get into the core of the video, which covers my Vanagon Dometic RTX2000 installation journey. And of course, this is all installed by an amateur working in his driveway, which is me.
So when you buy the RTX 2000, you can buy the unit itself for about $2,000. Then you have to buy these 2 other kits, which are about $300 each or $400. So it ends up coming close to $3,000, which is kind of expensive. But the way they ship the large air conditioner is pretty impressive. All that's on it is dust. It's pretty incredible how they pack it up and how fast, at least the van life outfitters folks were. And then in this thing, you're going to see the wire harness, and there's actually the main cable for 12 volt, pretty thick, like 6.4 gauge, probably 6 gauge. You get some really thick split loom if you need that. You get the right fuses for both the temp sensor that's built into the unit, as well as the main power and ground at about 80 amps. Of course, I'm going to use a circuit breaker I'm going to use one of the pretty high quality circuit breaker at 80 amps so I can manually disconnect the AC for the winter and so forth. And then here, this is the kind of it's kind of like the mounting plate. Now, of course, this plate's just way too big for Vanagon. That's not even going to be used. But you can see there's some metal bars on each side of the package. They kind of hold the unit in to the ceiling. And then this also comes with the 24 volt wire harness as well, even though I'm not using that with my model. And you also get some a rubber gasket. So each of them comes with a different size, which is kind of nice. So if you want the unit to stick above, let's say your luggage rack, you'd use the thicker one found in this case. Or over here, if you wanted to kind of be more streamlined with the Vanagon luggage rack, you would use this little bit thinner gasket. So it'll sit a little bit lower, kind of sit into that rack and be a little bit more low profile. But yeah, I thought like maybe there was a way to maybe not use these kits and just kind of do it myself with my own Anderson cord, but really you got to buy them all. And you're only going to use maybe half from each box here. But that's the way it is. Overall, the quality seems to be really impressive. And, you know, hopefully the installation will be a breeze. Wanted to add in that I was able to find a really nice bezel from, I believe it's DIY Van, and they specifically make adapter parts for a lot of the Dometic products, including the RTX2000. Even though Vanagon doesn't have any special kits, a lot of the stuff will transfer to that. So I was able to find a much sleeker bezel. The one that comes with the unit mounting kit is pretty cartoonish. It's not going to fit the Vanagon. Before I undertook this journey to put an air conditioner in the Vanagon, and this really lofty dream, my mechanic said, why don't you pull off that luggage rack and see what awaits below? There's always some presence, mostly in the form of rust. So I definitely had rust. In fact, probably the deeper rust spot that I found on the whole van was in the luggage area. So fortunately I was able to repair it and fill it and sand it down and put some POR 15 as kind of a preventative measure. I'm, of course, going to repaint the van probably in the next 3 or 4 years, so I'm not too worried about the aesthetics of the whole thing. Just wanted to make sure that the rust is stopped. But yeah, make sure that you pull that off. Go Westy has an excellent video on how to remove it. They also sell replacement bolts and washers and everything you need to really get that luggage rack back to operating condition. One of the harder parts of the install was pulling off the factory fiberglass that was glued on with this really thick material up here. I had to get a grinding disc with like a wheel, like a wire wheel on it, like with a drill, and then kind of hold a shop vac and sort of work through it so it wouldn't just destroy the car with glue pieces all over. That actually was pretty difficult. But you could see here that it mounts by, the air conditioner mounts by one of these things. And so some people will trim a little bit off the ends if it's a little short, but I think you have plenty of room here to put it in. But that's basically, this thing sucks the AC unit into the metal. One of the most painful points of the entire install was the template. If you go online, there's a lot of people talking about how they try to save as much roof tin as possible, and they re-augment the template and, you know, try to save the sheet metal, where at the end of the day, that just absolutely makes the installation tough. Like I would say I try to kind of cut my own template that was closer to the air conditioner and the Vanagon with the least amount of metal, and it just screwed it up because the way that the brackets screw in, the reinforcement bars, being able to adjust it, you know, an inch either way, just make sure and follow the template. Do not do what I did. So what's important to know when you cut the fiberglass, which is the most anxiety probably provoking part is the thing will literally fit like almost to the 1/4 inch, about right here. Go along the front, about right there. So you can see it just literally fits where the luggage rack is. And then right here on the back, might have to trim a little more off the back, but ultimately this kind of sits over it. So the actual thing will be lower. So the actual unit's actually sticking out more around here, but this goes over it and kind of makes a perfect fit. What's important to note is that when you're cutting the very back line, you can only do the first dip in the fiberglass indentation on the luggage rack. You do more than that, you will absolutely lose the seal. So here's a good point. Just cut that first dip. Don't go anymore, or you will lose the seal, that rubber seal that folds down from the pop top. But as long as you go to that first line, you should be good. So that's kind of the best advice I can give with cutting it. Just kind of use that and then make sure you find the center point. In this case, it's about 12.5 inches from where you're going to cut. You'll put that on the roof first, drill a hole, then you know that that's your center. And then you can, then I would recommend cutting the rest after that. So a good tip from the manufacturer is once you have your center point, and we'll put the luggage rack on there and make sure we center it. You put a hole in the center here according to the manufacturer. This is the driver's side, so I marked it. And then you can line up the holes. And then when you go on the inside of the vehicle or when you go on the outside, you can line this hole up again with what you drilled here. And then just simply trace everything and then cut. That's how you get your hole. You can see here, once I had the center of where the Dometic would line on the roof rack, I was able to use that center to go through the metal, and then eventually we'll just line up the template to that hole. And that's how we'll make the 14 by 15 inch cut. So here you can see it cut. Area for the Dometic, so I have the fan going. But also use a Sawzall. That thing works really good compared to a jigsaw. It's just easier to maneuver and follow the lines, and then just do like a step up drill bit to give yourself access for that blade. But overall, it's actually pretty easy to do, and we'll go ahead and put a molding around it, and it'll look really nice. So it's a little dark right now, but you can see that I put some molding along the edge here, which really cleans it up and gives it that nice professional look. This is nothing more than it's sort of like a door protector for like a car door. You kind of put it on the edge and it clamps in there, and it takes a while to work in, but it's really nice. Gives it a really nice look that matches the rest of the Vanagon. And you also don't see those disastrous cut marks when you mess up, so it's pretty forgiving. After doing the cutout with both a high quality jigsaw and blade and a Sawzall with a high quality blade, I would definitely use the manufacturer's recommendation to use some tin snibs. I think DeWalt makes one that goes on a drill. Totally worth it. Now, I do want to absolutely apologize in advance that I was not able to record the actual cutting of the roof. This unit's 80 pounds. I had 2 neighbors helping me, and it was 100 degrees pretty much outside, and we just had to cut the hole. So everything from this forward is post hole, but you get the idea.
Another part that you need to be mindful of when you're installing is to make sure that you use 3M window weld on the installation when you're dropping the unit in. So what you'll do is put down the 3M window weld and make a bead kind of around the metal where it's going to rest. And then you're going to put some more window weld on the inside and outside of that gasket. And then you're going to want to put some on top of the gasket where the Dometic is going to rest. And so once you do that, make sure it doesn't dry. You want the unit to be in there so it really compresses it, smashes it, makes that stuff go everywhere. And then it just creates an incredibly hard bond. And of course, on the inside of the van, use some 2x4s, prop up some wood sticks and really hold that thing nice and straight. Make sure you adjust those bolts nice and tight so you really get that unit in there and let it sit 24 hours and it'll be rock solid. Of course, you can add more reinforcement like I did, but it's pretty solid, and especially if you have the RTX 1000. The smaller compressor unit, you'd be more than adequate with that. When installing the 3M window weld with the gasket, ensure that you cover the roof with like tape or newspaper of some type. That stuff is really messy, gets all over the place. I spent so much time cleaning it off and probably took days to get off of me as well. So make sure and just cover everything when you're working with that 3M weld. It's really hard to get off if you accidentally get it on the paint.
So a couple notes, when you install this, make sure that you have clearance right here with the metal. So the idea is this thing clamps into the unit and then it kind of creates like a spring effect where you really get a good grip. And so some people on YouTube will keep the metal there thinking that's going to help, and it's not going to do anything. You literally have to make sure that the metal's cleared here so you can get that really nice pressure sense. And then also it's also close to the reinforcement area. So it's really important to do that. What I did is the unit actually sagged quite a bit when I first put it in there, but using the 3M window weld, and the reason why I use 3M weld on the entire project, because I really wanted it to be firm, because we don't have like multiple ribs or anything like, other big vans would have it, or like a Sprinter or a Mercedes or something like that. But it's incredible to see just how firm it is with the 3M weld. But nonetheless, I'm gonna make like a giant spring that goes through here and kind of up, kind of makes it with this, kind of a thick piece of metal. So I'm gonna try to do that just to reinforce it. But pretty impressive how tight that is, I will say. But accident wise, 10 years from now, I definitely want to reinforce it, even though this is pretty solid, I will say. But definitely rather be on the safe side. And then for this threads into the unit, and then you put it in just a little bit with this bolt, and then you tighten this one, and that brings it up into the ceiling and then makes that like compression really tight fit on these support areas. So what I did is, as you're using the 3M, make sure and use some wooden pieces that you can put going this way and then hold it up. So it really holds it straight and everything's like pretty much flush. And then you let that 3M weld dry. As you can see, just some basic 2x4s or whatever you can come up with. And you just kind of like set a point down there and then just let it sit for about 24 hours. And it will almost it's pretty strong. I'm pretty impressed. But like I said, I'm going to go to the next step and make sure that I have a little bit safer reinforcement to just be on the cautious side. Now I'm in the process of taking out those huge bolts that are really useful for aligning it and getting everything to compress. It's a long bolt that goes in there, and then you have a second bolt to adjust it. In this case, you're going to want to go to the hardware store and get an M6. So it's a metric 6 that's about 1.5 inches. So what's important to note is that I thought I was doing the smart thing by cutting a smaller hole, so I'd save more sheet metal. That actually isn't the way to go. Just make sure you use a template. So on this side, I'm actually able to just put the holes in or put the screws in. This side, it's a little off, so I'm having to like drill after the fact. I would definitely just make sure you use the template, even though it kind of looks large. It gives you access to all these holes and different adjustments. So it definitely will save a lot of time. I wish I would have done that in the first place, but you all can learn from my mistakes. Here you can see that I've completed the structural reinforcement of the air conditioner. In this case, I added a 1/8 inch galvanized piece of steel and bolted it into the side parts of the frame of the car. And it's basically creating a spring effect. So it's reinforcing the stock contour of the Vanagon. And I also put some, I think it was Sikaflex. I ran out of window 3M, but ran that along, you could see kind of along it, just to further connect that bond with the roof. And it's really just one big giant spring. These bolts, of course, that you see sticking out will be shortened, but it's really strong. I mean, it's just probably one of the stronger parts of the car. It's really incredible. You can see here, it's like almost midnight. I've been putting sound dampener on for 3 hours. Well worth it though. I've used a sound dampener on various parts of the Vanagon, and it's been really great. And I also put like a closed cell foam thermal insulation sound dampener on top of this, and then possibly a 3M Thinsulate, which is kind of like a fiberglass type material that works really well. But yeah, I really like this Amazon basic stuff. It's really lightweight, which I like, and it does a really good job. I've used, you know, from really expensive Dynomat, I've used Fat Mat, and I really like the Amazon. It's affordable and it's just really lightweight. I didn't want to add that much weight to the roof. I already have like an 80-pound air conditioner on there, but it worked really well. The other part that's really nice about the Amazon product, sound dampening product at least, is that it doesn't smell. I've used a lot of different products that were like 80 mil, and it's basically like putting tar on your, your car. It works well for sure, like with sound. If you're not in a very hot climate, that kind of tar 80 mil stuff can work well, but this one's a little bit thinner. It's a more lightweight. It's pretty good. It might not be as effective as 80 mil, but it's pretty damn close, and there's no weight, and it's easy to put on, and this stuff just does not smell. It's the type of material that's on it just really seals it. You're not getting any breaks in the foil. You know, this stuff it's not really foil, it's some sort of other material, and it's fantastic. So you can see here, I'm put on the closed cell foam. It's basically like this. It's about 4 millimeters thick. It's a thermal insulation. It also adds another layer of sound on top of the sound dampening, and so I really like this product. It definitely stays on. The Amazon sound dampener, that stuff stays on pretty well too, so it's a win-win. So really the two last parts of the install were running the electrical and also doing the headliner. Before I put the headliner on, I wanted to do a couple trips just to make sure everything was tightened up. There was no roof flex, there was no water leaks or anything. You know, I have gone on 2 trips. One of them was like a 30-mile, pretty steep climb, lots of turns. Air conditioner didn't budge. It was great. I did another one where I zipped through the Central California area and during a heat wave, height of the day heat wise, and it worked well. I do have the stock headliner, which is pretty old and decrepit. So I'm going to kind of use that to play around with what R&D do I need to like really get that to work well with this air conditioner. And I'm also ordering a Go Westy headliner, the black ABS plastic you can kind of see on that door, or like right here. All the doors have that really nice plastic, and I'm going to add that to the ceiling. So what I'm going to do is make a template with the stock headliner, and then I'm going to translate that over to the Go Westy ABS in the future. Which will be pretty soon. But as of right now, everything's working pretty well. And I'm excited to take on that part of the project. And I'm sure a lot of people want to know how I do that as well. It's going to be a little bit of a homework assignment. So one of the actually more challenging parts of the install is the wiring. So it comes with these really large Anderson connections that you see right there. They're pretty heavy duty. They can accept up to 2 gauge. I think there's like 6 gauge running through it, maybe 4 at the most. But the problem is when you get into the actual cable, it's got so much rubber around it. And even like there's a huge rubber garment that's meant for like drilling outside like a Freightliner, like a big truck or a semi truck. And so really this unit comes with so many different configurations when you buy it, whether it's RV, kind of a custom mod like I have here in the Vanagon, or a semi truck. They sort of throw the kitchen sink and the heaviest duty stuff at you, which is good, but the cable is just enormously thick, and it's not even the actual gauge wire. It's not really that thick. It's just encased in rubber. So you can kind of see here where I kind of just dropped it down temporarily. It's just a huge piece of rubber with like 2, maybe 6 gauge cables in it. And so What I did is I ended up just temporarily running it from the unit to here down. Unfortunately, you have to have the cable on this side because that's where the connection is. You can try it over here, really hard to run it down that way. You can't really drill through the support beam. I wouldn't recommend that. So that's a challenging part. And so what I did temporarily is just drop it in here. And then I ran it where there's like a big gap between the seat belt and the cupboard here in the kitchen. So it's basically running in there and then goes in here. And I have some other footage of that, how I did it. See here, I ran it from the unit where the air conditioner was. You don't want to screw into that. You might hit the AC. So I just used some like 3M, double stick tape, zip tie holders. And then where it wasn't under the fridge, I drilled a couple of these kind of zip ties with screw holders in it. I'm sure there's a better way, but it goes in here, out there, in there, and then you could see there's that red cable in the back that's gonna support some audio upgrades in the back. So it's a good time to run cables if you're gonna be doing other things up here or behind it. See what I'm doing here is also running 2 power lines, one for the Webasto gasoline heater, it's kind of like a Propex, and also running one for the Van Cafe trucker fridge. And then also, I've got a subwoofer cable in there for down the road. And I also have that really big 0 gauge cable that will eventually run a couple amplifiers up here under the seat. But I think while everything's apart, it's a really good idea to just think proactively and put it in there. But you can see it's all in there. And then I just ran it right underneath the seat. And this will be the kind of the power center. But at the end of the day, what I did is I ordered another set of Anderson. So I'm going to keep the wiring as it is now because I know it works really well. And I'm going to get like some New Concepts wire, which is, it's just a high-end pro audio wire gauge. It's really flexible. I'm going to run 4 gauge. You don't need any more than that. It's not that long. This original cable is like 26 feet long. And actually, you get more efficiency when you cut it and mounts it back here under the seat. But anyway, the goal, and the parts are coming in, is I'm going to put my own Anderson connection onto it, and I'm going to run it into this area. And with the 4 gauge New Concepts, you'll be able to get the wire in there. I have tested it with other wires. I'm just going to run it into the closet and then drop it where the solar panel cables are coming in anyway. So you could see here, I finished the wiring behind the refrigerator. Fridge pops out pretty easily. There's kind of some upgrade wires for amplifiers and subwoofers down the road. Also, if you haven't ran your speaker wires in the back, it's a good time to run them because it's got some weird like floating ground, and so you need to run new stereo wires. Fortunately, I've already ran them, probably a couple years ago. But if you want to do a subwoofer, if you want to like get some nice, positive and negative wires that are high gauge for the back speakers, do it now. And then you can kind of see in the middle here, these are all the cables. So you have the Dometic, we have our kind of accessory 0 gauge line, and then we have the heater as well as the Van Cafe fridge. So those are fused to the back of the lithium battery or back here under the seat. Then you can see they just go in there, and then in here, and then we're gonna have to kind of redo all this stuff to accommodate it all. But overall, not too bad. You can do it in a few hours. The battery system I would recommend, based on the experience I've had with this, and I have a kind of a unique system, I'll explain it later, but I would really go for 300 amp hours and a starting battery. Make sure you have at least 200 watts if you can. I mean, at minimum, you can get away with a 200 amp hour. You can definitely get away with a 100 watt solar panel. But just make sure you have the Renogy, the Go Westy Renogy system. It works really well. It's gonna, kind of balance it'll allow you to have the alternator charge the lithium. It'll let the solar panels charge the lithium. It gives you Bluetooth access to all the power you're running. You definitely want to get a battery monitor. It's kind of like that, what I have over there. Kind of allows us to take some analytics of it. It's super important. I just wanted to add that the Lithium 300 light time fits like a glove in here. It's an absolute great fit. You have room for 2 other batteries as well. And I'm going to build a little frame that holds some of the fuses up here. So it's definitely hot today, about 97 degrees outside, over 100 in the bus. Can't wait to turn the air conditioner on. But to just kind of explain how everything works, I have 2 bus bars, a positive and negative, and the lithium battery goes to the positive part of the bus bar. And then from the bus bar, it feeds the air conditioner, which has an 80 amp circuit. Also, from the bus bar, the positive, so whatever the solar panels and the DC to DC charger puts out to the lithium battery, it sends that to the bus bar so the battery can repair itself with the new energy. And then of course, right here, there's a solar panel input. So that's where the solars are coming from. This is the Bluetooth, even though I have a monitor as well. And then back here, these are, it's like a mini fuse box. So I have like the Van Cafe truck fridge, and I have this big like Dometic freezer. It's kind of cool. It's got like 2 zones on it. And so that's gonna run and supply power there. And yeah, so basically this is like the full appliance setup. I'm still working on this part where I have some other batteries and things, but for the most part, it's done. Everything's in there. I made a nice little case here, put some closed cell foam on it. You know, it really gives it a nice look. And then I'll put some cap ends on this, cap those up for aesthetically. But yeah, that's basically the system. So in a nutshell, but I really do like the Renogy, that the Go Westy one they sell is really good. The only other advice I would give, it's actually 2. One, only use 4 gauge. I bought a bunch of 0 gauge and it's just so hard to work with, and it doesn't call for that. I looked at the specs on both the air conditioner, the Renogy, the amp hours, you know, what's running on it, and 4 gauge was like more than enough. So I would really go with New Concepts. It's like an audio, like kind of a professional audio brand, but they make 4 gauge cable that's oxygen free, highest quality, really flexible. It's going to make your life a lot easier. And then with those 4 gauge, make sure you get like a ton of 4 gauge crimp heads. I had to go to the store twice, so just kind of keep an eye out, you know, for that. And then finally, a lot of like people on YouTube, or when they're running these Renogis, they'll have a bunch of like cutoff switches, and in a Vanagon, you just don't have that much room. So in a way, the circuit breakers work as a cutoff switch. I can just say here, boom, and all of a sudden solar power went down. You know, I can disconnect the 80 amp circuit for the air conditioner. I can turn off the power coming from the solar charger. It's pretty nice. I do have some other fuses that are in line, kind of near the battery, like where the alternator, like where that feed's coming in. This is the alternator cable. So that just kind of connects to my starter battery that has the alternator cable going right to it. But all in all, yeah, it took about a day or so to get the wiring done. It's a lot of work.
So what I did here is I put a 200 watt solar panel. It's kind of underneath that roof rack and next to the rocket, the travel box. It's called rocket box, I think. And yeah, you definitely want to get as much power as you can on there. I also have, I believe it's the Go Westy kit right here, and a portable that kind of adds to it. So I think that's like a 100 plus 200. But yeah, you definitely want to get as much solar as you can. I'd recommend both. Definitely when you're able to like move the portable one, I'll probably buy 2 portable ones just to have that extra juice. You get a lot more. But this is nice to just have a constant trickle charge of, you know, 5 or 6 amps. I don't quite get the full amount because it's blocked a little bit by that box. But yeah, I think in the future, I'm gonna keep the 200 there. I might be able to put a 100 on top of the box, but I'm not sure. I have to kind of brainstorm that out. But I'm definitely gonna get a second panel for this, so I can get a total of about 300 or 400 watts, which will really charge it up on really, really hot days. But for the most part, a 300 amp hour battery with a 200 watt solar charger is pretty good. Like, it's going to definitely be probably just, you know, you'll definitely need it. It's just when you start camping for like a week straight or 4 days, 5 days straight, that's when I've noticed you start to get a little bit more out of power. But I haven't run out yet. And I also have a 100 amp hour backup. But that's kind of running some other things in the car, but I do have that available as well. For the solar panel, you can see that I have a cable coming out that's wrapped in like a
wire harness tape, and then I just popped it into the back of the closet right there. That was actually pretty easy to do. And then it goes in the closet and it comes out right there by the bench where the battery is. Since we're on the topic of power, I did want to note that the Subaru 2.2 liter I'm getting, just with the factory alternator, with the Subaru conversion, I am getting about 20 extra amps. So when all my batteries are fully charged, I'm ready to hit the road, I'm getting plus 20 amps usually from that alternator, plus another like 3 to 6 amps from the solar panel. So it ends up being pretty well. And if it's not too hot, if it's like 88 degrees and below, typically I'm just running at like a burn rate of, like in economy mode or auto mode, I'm basically at a burn rate between 5 amps. Usually, sometimes it gets as high as 10 max, but it's pretty low. But definitely I'm looking into getting a larger alternator, because that'll just help charge batteries in between. Yeah, if we're doing like a big tour, you know, or doing a really long trip of multiple stops, having that little extra juice with a high capacity alternator would be pretty nice. So I'm definitely that's in the plans for sure. But the other thing I'll note is I do have a second battery, and when that battery runs a little bit and the alternator is charging both the starter, the kind of the backup 100 amp, and giving a little bit extra to the 300 amp lithium, it's a lot harder. The air conditioner almost pulls double, because at that point the alternator is only giving me about 5 or 6 amps versus 20 amps. So it's something you just got to be cognizant of. But I think if you're just running like a 300 amp with a starting battery, you're going to be just fine, and usually get that. You should be getting the full 20 amps put into that. On my particular build out, I didn't spare any expense. If I needed it, I got it. In fact, I bought too much stuff, probably a little too high quality, but I wanted to do it right. And it was sort of a exploration or research and development kind of project that I was having fun with. But the places that you can immediately save probably $1,000 or more is, you know, you can bring the battery from a 300 amp hour to a 200. Personally, I like having the 300. I even have an additional 100, but I've done some trips that were 2 or 3 days in some pretty hot conditions, and I had plenty left over on those with the 300. So conceivably the 200 amp hour would work. It would suffice. Dometic actually recommends 170 amp hours and above. Wiring kit wise, you do get the 2-year extended warranty when you buy the large harness kit and the mounting kit. I personally wanted the warranty because this was my first go ahead. I also wanted to make sure I had all the correct wiring. I didn't really know what I was getting into, but I've heard of many people online that you can buy your own Anderson connection, and that's ultimately what I'm doing anyway. I'm going to customize the wiring kit to my liking to sort of get more flexibility with the install inside the Vanagon. However, many folks out there can get mounting bars. I think DIY Van makes several kits. So it's possible. I haven't really looked into it in detail, but I know there are plenty of people that have reported that they can make their own wire and mounting kit, and they're available, saving you that $800 or so. Also, the circuit breakers, I went with really high quality circuit breakers that were $50 a piece. I had 4 of them. That's $200 right there. Make sure and use 4-gauge wire. You don't need anything thicker. That can save you quite a bit of money. But those are really the 3 areas, like, you know, using fuses instead of circuit breakers, using a little bit smaller battery, and having the amp kit, doing it yourself. You'll save quite a bit of funds right there. So you could see right now I'm running the unit in eco mode, and it's basically a break even. I only draw a negative of like half an amp to 1 amp. So when you're driving with the Subaru alternator at least, and you know, I got some solar panels, but it's pretty cloudy right now. It's pretty much a break even in eco mode, and I usually don't use it outside of eco mode.
Dog's happy in the front. And we're only using about 6 amps total. And I'm going through Central California right now. It's pretty hot. And this thing seems to be holding at about 4 to 6 amps on eco mode. So right now, I'm in Dixon, California, which is pretty much Central California. It's in the 90s, really hot. I'm only pulling about 6 or 7 amps. Plenty cool. Kids are in the back seat, dogs in the front seat. Yeah, it works great. It's really comfortable considering how hot it's outside, and it's on eco mode. I'm not even on the high. If I went too high, it would get too cold up front. So right now we're at the peak heat of the day. I actually turned it on boost mode. You can see it's pulling about 30 amps. The alternator probably puts out 20, solar another 4 or 5. So it's quite a bit of power. But I mean, to be honest, it's kind of too cold with boost, even in 90-degree heat. So I'm just gonna put it back to eco mode, but I'd imagine if it's in the hundreds, boost mode would probably work just fine. So I just completed a trip from a 3-hour drive through Central California to Sacramento, and the absolute peak heat of the peak heat of the day in the 90s. You know, a lot of traffic. You know, stop and go. This fan running the whole time with the air conditioner on eco, and then the last half I put it on regular to push more air conditioning to the back. But the whole 3-hour trip I used about 9% of my battery, so less than 10% of the battery over the whole time. And then even this little guy is sleeping because of the air conditioning, so I have it running right now, and the dog's pretty happy. But I've never been able to drive a Vanagon and with a baby too, or a toddler, and a dog at the absolute peak heat of the summertime through Central California. And this is such a game changer. Works really well. Air conditioner is really cold. It really changes what I can do with the Vanagon. I'm starting to appreciate the van so much more than I have in the past, and that was already a lot to begin with. What I like is it's like really hot, 97 to 100 degrees, Lake Natoma. And as we're getting the kayaks ready, you can run this thing independent of the motor having to run. And then you come in here, it's really nice, really cool. This little guy's happy, so definitely worth it. I like that option to be able to just run the AC while you're like loading up, or if it's really hot, it really cools it down fast on boost mode in particular. Feels pretty good in the back for sure, but you have to run boost mode to really get the air back here on a really hot day. So we just got back from the lake, the kayaks and everything. The temperature is just scorching, man. Like 90 is gonna hit 100 a day almost, and we've been definitely running it on high. I think boost for a little bit in auto, but you know, it brought it down to 84 degrees inside from like over 100, and it's also just really comfortable. Even though 84 degrees doesn't sound that cool, it really is, because there's just so much cool air floating around the bus. Even this little guy is he's napping in a heat wave inside the Vanagon, which was just absolutely unheard of. So it's really nice. It did take a little bit to cool it down, probably about 20 minutes or half an hour. But now after about 45 minutes or so, it's really nice. And kiddo's asleep in the back in the middle of the heat wave in the Vanagon. So that's a win in my book. So right now it's the heat of the day. It's almost, I think it's over 97 degrees in Sacramento, really hot day. It's actually 108 degrees, or 108.5 earlier in the Volkswagen Vanagon.
I'm going to go ahead and put this air conditioner on, and I'm going to go get a hamburger and come back in about an hour, and we'll see what the temp sits at. I think this is a really good test of like the upper limit of the unit. Hamburger took a little longer. It's about an hour and 20 minutes. It's 108. And I've just let this thing run for, let it run for about an hour and 15, 20 minutes. Boom, 73 degrees. It's still like 93 degrees outside. So this thing definitely works. That's not proof. I don't know what is. I would say that if you do the curtains in the back, it actually gets a lot cooler back there. You'll probably get another like 3 to 5 degree draw if you put the curtains up. That does a really great job of really insulating it. But I'm kind of lazy. I don't want to do that. It doesn't. To me, it's comfortable enough that with the kid back there, the dog, and they're gonna have no issues. But if you need to, you can set the curtains up, and that's gonna definitely cool it even more, even though it seems to be pretty good. I mean, we're kind of approaching the hottest part of the day, and it just keeps getting lower and lower by every 15 minutes or so it drops a degree. So it's definitely nice in here. It's working really, really well. What's also important to note is that I have, aside from the front, limo tint all the way around the car, which I think helps. And I also have most of the interior. I've put PR15 as kind of a rust preventative coat, and then put sound dampener and then closed cell foam over that. In the case of the doors, I have the same process, but I also did it on the outer skin and the inner skin and sealed up the whole door. And I also closed cell foam over that as kind of like what you can see. I know it's kind of close, but you can kind of see how it was done here. And I think that makes a big difference. I'm not completely done with the whole vehicle. I still have a ways to go, but I think the limo tint and the sound dampening with the closed cell foam and insulation. And the doors, like aside from the windows, there's like some 3M Insulate, they call it. It's a really good product. So, I mean, that also is probably why I'm getting pretty good results. But I will say, like, the amount of heat that comes from the glass up here is just unreal. It's pretty intense. And so what we've ended up doing is we have 2 shooting backwards for the kid. And then up front, we just kind of shoot this one either at her neck, it's pretty good, or just right in front. Kind of creates a nice layer of coldness right there, and it feels really good. And then when you're driving, you definitely feel it. The air definitely circulates. It's really nice, really a game changer. But on really, really, really hot days, you do have to use boost mode, and it does take a little bit to get the van cool. But once it's cold, after about a half hour or so, you're good to go. So the last thing I'll add is that if you're in one of those situations where it's mid 90s to 100 plus, and the van's been sitting for hours in the direct sunlight, and it's just basically hell. You could always turn it on boost mode and just kind of run the curtains, just shut them down. That actually really helps. And I'm lucky that I've thermo insulated most of the car. I've definitely done all the limo tint in the back at least, but you definitely have that option if you're interested in this and you want to speed it up and you really want to be an icebox. But to me personally, it's fine. I don't really mind. The baby doesn't mind. The dogs don't mind. It's plenty cold, plenty comfortable without the curtains. But my God, if you want to put them up, it gets even colder. So it's a pretty good unit. I'm definitely glad I bought it. It really has changed the game of what's possible with these beloved vans. If you made it this far into the hour-long video, you're no doubt as passionate about the Vanagon as I am. The video is completely agnostic. I received no sponsorship or products for this project. I'm just an amateur who loves Vanagons and working in his driveway. In time,
My hope is that others will install these DC AC units, especially as prices continue to drop on the units and lithium batteries, and we Vanagon owners can appreciate and cherish our vans in new ways. Please stay connected to this channel as I will be posting a follow-up video which features the custom headliner and electrical wire installation. In addition, I'm going to fabricate a custom dash panel that will support both the battery monitors along with a large Alpine CarPlay touchscreen multimedia system. Well, I hope you enjoy your newfound coolness. I'll see you on the highway.